Just as the steadfast Princess of Wales was finally regaining some sliver of hopeful spirit after months of agonizing chemotherapy treatments, doctors have now dealt Catherine another unimaginably crushing blow. In a private meeting this week, her devoted medical team regretfully revealed that the punishing effects of radiation and cancer-battling pharmaceuticals appear to have rendered the 41-year-old royal's reproductive system beyond repair, effectively eliminating any chance she may have wished to provide her beloved husband Prince William with any more children in the future. The latest heartbreaking cancer setback, which multiple sources describe as having totally devastated the entire Cambridge family, comes at a particularly difficult inflection point for Kate. After combating advanced stage breast cancer spreading into her lymph nodes over this past harrowing year through every available means modern medicine could throw at her ravaged body, the brave princess had finally begun allowing modest optimism to creep back into her mindset in recent weeks. Her strength and endurance through each grueling treatment regimen, including several experimental viral therapies and radical surgical tumor removal procedures, had become a national inspiration, utterly embodying the historic British keep calm and carry on ethos. And while the harsh realities of her stage 4 diagnosis still loomed as an ever-present dark specter, the glimmers of Catherine's iron will somehow overcoming this existential battle had at last returned some light to the House of Windsor's formerly haunted corridors. You could see her rediscovering flashes of that trademark infectious smile and undying positivity that's always defined the very essence of the Duchess lately, revealed one palace staff member who has worked closely beside Kate's domestic team throughout her hospitalization odyssey. More frequent days without debilitating nausea or constant bodily misery. More evenings filled with cuddling and activities alongside George, Charlotte and little Prince Louis again, just like old times. You'd catch her humming or softly singing lullabies while soaking in warm baths specifically designed to soothe her radiation-scarred skin. The princess was finally clawing her way back out of that abyss that nearly consumed her mere months ago. However, those fragile seeds of regenerative joy and hope blooming within Catherine over her recovery's trajectory are now at severe risk of withering once more, palace insiders fear. The prospect of no longer being able to conceive any additional children with William is understandably agonizing on an almost primordial level for the former commoner turned modern-day matriarchal icon. Even in the searing depths of her worst chemotherapy-induced hell these past 18 months, sources suggest Kate still managed to fantasize about someday overcoming the cancer's ruthless colonization of her body in order to provide her future king with another royal heir, perhaps even a little baby sister for precious Prince Louis. The motherly warmth radiating from her very being was always such a powerful counterbalance and humanizing force against the harshest health deprivations fate unleashed upon her. I can still so vividly recall ducking into the doorway of her hospital suite to keep my head down while the nurses changed bloody dressing and replaced chemo bags, the staffer solemnly recounted of her most drained, emaciated depths. But even just by chancing to meet Kate's gaze during those moments, the inner light burning in her maple eyes somehow never faded despite whatever new circle of Dante's Inferno her disease plunged her into on any given day. She'd offer just a glimmer of reassuring smile saying, "I'm still here, don't you worry," while tenderly caressing her lower abdomen as if silently willing one last baby into existence through sheer spiritual force alone. For all her suffering, that profound maternal aura surrounding her never once wavered no matter how much of Kate's physical being was ground down to sheer dust over these many torturous months. It's now being reported that Princess Catherine, upon being informed of her acquired fertility limitations, could only attempt masking her completely shattered emotional state by pursing her lips tightly and blinking away welling tears while clasping both palms into Prince William's trembling hands. The 41-year-old husband is said to have initially erupted in a torrent of wails and racking sobs himself after his wife learned she could bear him no more issue, perhaps finally succumbing to the last vestige of personal anguish throughout their shared ordeal. The pair just held each other in a crushing, silent embrace for several excruciating minutes, described the source with a mournful crack in their voice. He eventually receded into that familiar royal stiff upper lip we've come to expect publicly, but for those few searing eternal moments witnessing will absolutely crumble into a quivering puddle in Kate's nurturing arms. The earth itself could have shattered beneath the weight of their devastation and not a soul would have blinked. They're processing this about as well as any struggling young parents could upon losing their last flicker of hope for any more little ones to cherish. For Prince William, the sterility update carries particularly profound implications beyond mere paternal desires or even dynastic obligations as future sovereign, robbing him of any simplest dreams to behold Catherine's radiant fertility and beauty beholden once more. When you think about how Will grew up with virtually no lasting maternal warmth or sacred familial love surrounding his earliest years, the notion of being forever denied any additional opportunities to properly experience the full giving birth journey alongside his own wife, I can only begin to fathom the depth of anguish eating him alive over this, explains Majesty editor Ingrid Seward. Building an idealized new family unit with Catherine was always meant to form the bedrock healing every psychological wound Charles and Diana's bitter civil war inflicted upon him as a boy. The very idea of that purest form of creation and life springing forth into the world for Will and Kate to cherish together once more has now been torn to shreds. Of course, the cruel childhood parallels between Prince William and his late mother Princess Diana's own internal devastation over birthing hardships cannot be ignored in context. Diana herself suffered no fewer than a half-dozen miscarriages throughout her tumultuous marriage as she struggled to produce the sole heir Prince Harry after initially delivering William. This excruciating traumatic history of nearly bleeding out or losing her own life over multiple failed pregnancies inflicted deep emotional scars upon the people's princess that relatives believe never truly healed. For their part, sources closest to the immediate Cambridge family suggest William and Kate are now retreating into almost total seclusion while grieving and processing this simultaneously private and soul-rending blow. Sympathetic royal watchers and friends have already mobilized organizing counseling support and securing private religious counsel from the Archbishop of Canterbury himself to help them emerge intact on the other side spiritually. However, even the consoling graces of faith itself may not provide enough balm to ease the wounds of these latest hopes being so savagely torn away. It's simply become too exquisitely painful for William to even make eye contact with staff or directly acknowledge this newest ring of suffering aloud just yet. He's already experienced more than any parent could ever fathom over the past year and change, the Kensington Palace staff member confides. Every strenuous loss from every waking hour has been absorbed by Kate, instead absorbing it all like a heartbreak sponge so Will and the children could remain intact. And yet from what little I've gleaned when trying to soothe her own reddened eyes, Catherine seems to exhibit the same courage and quiet resilience, constantly replenishing her indomitable spirit to carry forth no matter how atrocious life's blows. Her only words to me were something to the effect of, "I'll find the strength again for us. Just allow me some fleeting dark before we go on marching together as always." Indeed, that prevailing sense of grit and almost spiritual fortitude is the very quintessence driving what makes Catherine so uncommonly cherished amongst the British populace, an uncanny embodiment of the stalwart national character required to persevere against overwhelming generational odds. From the humble Berkshire villages of her middle-class upbringing to serving as a military spouse during the Falklands conflicts to the stoic cancer struggle gripping the world's rapt attention today, Kate's unyielding persona radiates an evergreen sense of enduring heritage and continuity, safeguarding the royal family itself throughout any crisis imaginable. While palaces may crumble, ancient trees to topple, and most human institutions inevitably fade into dust, many believe the House of Windsor itself draws its most unbreakable foundations from icons like the Duchess of Cambridge. For even as this latest unthinkable personal hardship bears down, the prevailing wisdom is Kate shall inevitably rise again shortly, her very existence and force of character representing Britain's immortal and ceaseless renewal when all surrounding reality seems